Most table saws come with horrible fences. My table saw didn't come with a fence at all, so I had to buy one. And I spent, a couple $100 on one of those T-square style fences. And I've liked it. I've had it for a couple of years. It's worked great. But what I really wanted was one of the lead screw driven fence systems the Incra makes. Oh, have you seen those? Those are nice. But they're way more than I want to pay. So I had to do without. Until I found the Pinnacle Positioner at Woodcraft. And I found it on the clearance table, and turns out it's a discontinued product. But it's the exact same thing as the Incra Lite Postitioner. You've got to check this thing out.
I need a micro adjustment, and I want dead-on repeatability sometimes. Because those errors and cuts, even if it's just a couple thousandths of an inch, they can really add up over the course of a project. Now, there have been those who have installed micro adjustment features that fit on the fence rail, and they work with a bolt that pushes against the side of the fence. It works fine for pushing it that way, but it doesn't give you lock-in repeatability. That's what you get with the Incra Positioner. There's these little zigzag teeth, and when you tighten the fence, it pinches, interlocking your teeth and giving you an exact space right to the thousandth of an inch. It's perfect repeatability, and it's what I want for my table saw fence. It's just a positioner with only 12 inches of play, and it comes with a router fence, but I adapted it to my table saw, and here's how I did it. I fastened it to a little wooden base. Now, I use screws to hold it so that it can be taken off easily and shifted over to a router table. Heck, I can even use it on a band saw, a drill press, any tool that I want micro adjustment and exact repeatability. Installing the positioner is an easy matter. It just sits over top of the rail and locks onto the fence on two screws that stay there. There's nothing to tighten, it just slips on. If you want your exact measurements, you slide it to the nearest foot, and there's a pin that goes into a hole that I drilled into the front of the fence and tapped, so that not only gives me my exact stop at 1 foot or at 2 feet, 3 feet, and so on, where I have separate holes, but it also locks it in place. Now I can move my fence just like I normally would. But now I'm using the scale on top of the positioner instead of the scale on the fence rail. Why? Because it gives me a positive stop every time, even if I change, make a separate cut, and then want to go back to that first cut, it's going to be exactly in the same spot. And I have micro adjustability by turning the knob on the end. You can really get an accurate cut that way. If I want to make a cut over 12 inches, I simply loosen up the knob and slide it to the next hole, locking it in place. If I don't want to use this at all I have to do is leave the pin out. The table saw fence will slide freely back and forth, moving that carriage along with it. So I don't have to use it, but it's nice to have if I want to do really accurate cuts throughout my project. Then, when I'm all done, I can take it off and put it back on my router table or any other machine that I decide to build an adapter for. It can take a rather inexpensive table saw fence and give it the full features of an expensive Incra fence system.
And it's easy to just pull right off the saw and put away or use on another machine by just unscrewing a couple of bolts. This thing is great, and I think I'm going to end up using this all over the workshop.